So today we're going to try a different style of close reading. This is going to be close reading where we have questions that we have to answer at the end. So the first thing we want to do is we want to look at what the questions are that we have to answer. The reason that we're going to read the questions ahead of time is so that we have an idea of what we need to look for as we read. They will also give us an opportunity to think about what it is the text is going to cover so that when we go in, we're not completely going in blind. Now, as you read each question, you want to identify important information from the question that will help you understand what exactly it is that question is asking. So looking at question 1, it says, in line 9, Hughes's protagonist states, I've been a-climbing on. Based on the context of the poem, which statement most likely represents what she means? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to circle where it says line 9, and I'm going to circle that because it tells me where I need to find my answer in the poem, or where my best chances of finding the answer are going to be in the poem. Next, I'm going to underline this sentence, I've been a-climbing on. With those quotation marks around it, I know that that's going to be directly stated somewhere within the poem, so I need to look for where that's at so I can kind of investigate the context around it in order to identify what it means. And then finally, I'm going to box in down here where it says what she means, because this is pretty much the overall question that I need to answer as I'm going through and identifying the answer to the question. Now, there's a lot of extra writing that's going on here, so what I'm going to do is right above the question, I'm going to rewrite the question in my own words using just the information that I have identified here. So I could put something like, what does she mean by I's been a-climbing on in line 9. If I understand the question well enough that I can rewrite it in my own words or sum it up into its basic question, that means I really know what it's asking me and I have a better chance of getting it right. Next, I'm going to go on to question number 2. Question number 2 asks, what is the main idea of lines 17 through 20? So again, I'm going to circle where it tells me to find my answer or where I need to look to find my answer. I'm going to underline main idea here because that lets me know what I need to be looking for, the main idea. And then just box in what is the main idea, because that's going to be the overall question specifically of those lines. Now, this question is pretty much as simple as it's going to get, so I don't really need to rewrite or restate anything here. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on to question number 3. Question number 3 says, given the context of the poem, what does the speaker mean by climbing? Now, I don't really have a specific location, so there's nothing for me to circle here. However, I can underline the word climbing. That lets me know as I read, I need to look for how that word is being used throughout the poem, so that I can really focus on the context and understanding what the speaker means by it. Then I'm going to block in what does the speaker mean, because again, that's my basic question. And instead of just rewriting everything out into that basic question, I'm going to get rid of this part that says, given the context of the poem. When I identify what does the author mean by climbing, if I'm going back into the poem to identify that information, then I'm going to find what they mean in the context of the poem. I don't really need to keep that part of the question. Now, once I have that completed, I'm going to go into my selection itself. Let me back out here just a little bit since it's a larger page. And so what I'm going to do here is starting the same steps that I did yesterday. First, I'm going to look at my title, Mother to Son, and I'm going to make a prediction that this is going to be about a mother and son. Now again, at this point I've not read the poem, so I don't have specifics on what exactly it's going to tell me about a mother and son. I'm just going to predict, because of the title, it's going to be about a mother and son. And just briefly looking over the structure, like I did yesterday, I can tell that this is going to be a poem. And because I know that poems are rarely about what is being said, I know that I really have to pay close attention to what's happening in the poem. Because chances are the poet is saying one thing and really meaning something else. So what I need to do is I need to make sure that I'm reading this at least twice. So the first time I'm just going to read it straight through, just get an overall feel for how the poem goes. The second time, I'm going to take it in chunks and break down either line by line, stanza by stanza, if it's in, ready to grasp stanzas, or chunks, to really get what the author is saying here. So, I'm going to pretend like I've already read it through the first time. We're going to go in and we're going to read it through the second time. We're going to take it in small chunks, so we're going to start with these first two lines. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. So I'm going to put a bracket off to the side, and I'm going to write what I think the author means by that. I know that crystal stairs, crystal tends to be really pretty, really smooth. So I'm assuming if they're talking that it's not been a crystal stair, then it's probably not been easy, it's not been pretty. So I can put, life has not been easy or pretty. Okay? Then I can continue on with the next little chunk. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. And here, I'm going to chunk that area. Now notice, right now, I'm chunking by sentences. So you can see how these carry on into sentences and they end with the periods at each one. Because they are working as sentences that are broken down to create the poem, it's easier for me to chunk it by sentence because it's going to be kind of the same information that builds off of each other, and it's going to be really important to keep that together. So here, it's talking about, it's had tacks in it, splinters, boards torn up, places with no carpet on the floor, it's bare. Again, it's just kind of repeating that idea that life has not been easy. It's not been very pretty for her. So we can put that life has been hard and even ugly. So as you can see, we're chunking it. We're trying to break down what each thing is, what each group of lines in this particular poem is really trying to say. Now, once I've done that for all of my lines, going all the way to the end, then I'm going to go back to my questions. And I'm going to use some of the information from my poem to answer these questions. So, for example, in question number 1, it talks about in line 9. So what I need to do is I need to make sure that first I have numbered every line in the poem. Now, sometimes you'll have poems that already are numbered for you, whether it's their stanza numbers or their line numbers. And so if it's already numbered for you, then you probably can go ahead and skip this step. But if it's not numbered, you want to go ahead and number your lines so you can use that information for references. I'm going to go to line 9. I'm going to look at that phrase, I's been a-climbing on. And then I'm going to identify what she means. Now, because at this point I should have already broken down this section and explained what the author meant, my answer should already be right there on the text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my trusty highlighter. I'm going to highlight line 9 here. I'm going to put the number 1 off to the side and circle it because that's where I'm going to find the answer to number 1. And I'm going to look at any information that I've written off to the side that's going to help me identify the meaning here. And I'm going to see if it matches up with any of my answers, A, B, C, or D. Once I've narrowed it down to what I believe is the correct answer choice, I'm going to fill in this information. I know this because, and put here, if I can defend my answer, if I can explain why I know that that is the correct answer, then again, I have a better opportunity of getting that answer correct versus if I just guess or kind of say, it was the longest answer, or it was the shortest answer, or it was the best answer I came to without looking at any of the other answers. So you really want to take the time to make sure, one, you look at every single answer they give you, because one may be better than the other, and two, that you're identifying or able to identify why that's the correct answer. If you have issues identifying why your answer is correct, take the time to explain why the others are wrong. If you can show me why A, B, C are wrong, but why D is correct, but if you can explain to me why A, B, and C are wrong, and you can't really tell me why D is correct, but you know the other three are wrong, then again you have the better opportunity of getting the answer right because you've been able to say, no, without a doubt, these are wrong. So, you go through, you answer all of your questions, you explain how you know this, and with all of the support that you should have, you should be getting hopefully a 100% on each of these. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know.